I'm going to concentrate on the South Asian community in Britain because that's the country that that's the background that I come from. I just want to ask you all a quick question, so a very quick show of hands, and I know I've only got a couple of minutes. How many of you have access to satellite TV? Okay, that, very quickly, that's a substantial number of people in the room. What I want you to do when you go home today is I want you to go home and I want you to go through the channels, get your remote, sit down and just work through the channels. I've been doing this because I have no life. The thing that sparked it was an interview with Noam Chomsky and Jeremy Paxson. Noam Chomsky said that the internet was a fine invention, but he also warned that it could be used as a tool for surveillance, propaganda and control. And I thought, well, what about television? Because that's got a much wider reach. There are people who don't like computers, people who don't use the internet. So I started looking at all those channels that are available. And the insidious, invasive, pervasive nature of the information that is available there is shocking. Absolutely shocking. Now, I've got the basic Sky TV package, and I'm not sure if Rupert Murdoch knows that he's actually helping fundamentalists across the world, but I'm telling him loudly and clearly now that he actually is. So I don't pay for any additional channels, I have the very basic package. I have counted that there are 13 Muslim channels, 3 Sikh channels, 3 Hindu channels, and 17 Christian channels that are available. Now, my data is not conclusive. This is just what I've been doing in the past few weeks. This is also those channels that identify as religious outlets and are also in languages that I understand. I speak 3 Asian languages, but I wouldn't know if the Arab channels were religious channels. I wouldn't know if any of the European language channels were because I don't speak those languages. So I thought, right, I'm going to look at radio. 15 radio channels that are available through your satellite box that come into our homes. That's the first shock. The shock that then comes to me is I started looking for women on these channels. Now, I want you to think about who watches TV. It's every single one of us. The presence of women on those stations is incredibly limited. If you do see a woman, she is confined to talking about a woman's role as a wife and mother and how that, is the most important thing in the world. She is draped in black usually, although there occasionally you do get the sparkly hijab, or a chador. Various denominations are there, whether it's Ahmadiyya Muslims, whether it's Shia Muslims, whether it's Sunni Muslims. And I have spent much more time looking at the Muslim channels. These are the images that our children are getting. These are the images that parents are getting all the time, that people are being confined to these stereotypes. All of the discussions are around the religious texts, but the minutiae and the detail of family life. There was one phone-in I listened to, and a woman rang I still can't believe she rang a TV station. She rang because she was worried about her daughter, who is suffering from anorexia and severe depression, but rather than take her to a medical professional, she was ringing an imam to ask him for an ayat that she could read to make her daughter better. To give the imam his dues, he did say, I'm not an expert, maybe you should see a doctor, but hang on, God says. All of the men in these channels, apart from being overweight, not very attractive, all have those sort of fist-length beards and prayer caps. And every other word is Allah says this and Allah says that. Anne-Marie used the expression intellectual sterility. For me, it's intellectual castration. It's horrific what is happening. And I'm now beginning to look at literature. I went with my mother to a couple of Urdu bookshops because my Urdu's not that brilliant, my written Urdu anyway. You can no longer get books about history. You can no longer get books about art or culture or architecture or archaeology or any of of science or any of the wonderful things that we could be expanding our minds with, or travel even. The only books that you have are about a very specific Wahhabi strain of Islam. And we've already had Saudi Arabia mentioned, but Saudi Arabia has oil, so none of us are prepared to challenge Saudi Arabian thought because we're so afraid of not getting access to the oil. Children's books. We have religious schools in this country. I mean, they're a step away from apartheid, in my opinion, and we fought for years as the anti-racist movement to break down those barriers. Children are being taught that mothers are covered up, that they stay at home, that they cook and they clean and they do nothing else. This is outrageous. And when the minutiae of your daily life is controlled to the extent that it is being controlled by these TV stations and these radio stations and these publishers, it's absolutely terrifying. Is it any wonder that the community that I came from, that has an incredible cultural, historical heritage, that all of that has now been denied and dismissed and hidden away for all eternity? And where will this stop? I've written to Ofcom, who regulate communications in this country, and I'm yet to receive a reply. But this is a piece of research that I want to take forward. And this isn't specific to Britain. Go to Europe, go to America, go to, I go to Pakistan and India regularly, go anywhere in the world and these channels are there. So how do we in Britain regulate overseas broadcasts? But at least we can regulate those British-based channels, those European-based channels through the power mechanisms that we have, be that through the European Union or through our Parliament. We've got to move on from mind control, and I'm going to say something that I'm going to conclude now because I know I've only got a couple of minutes. Any students of A-level history in this country will have studied Nazi Germany. And one of the books that's always stuck with me, and I did my A-levels about 100 years ago, was a book by a man called Richard Grunberger called A Social History of the Third Reich. If we do nothing now, where are we walking towards? Thank you very much.